Wow. Okay. So you got the news that you are moving to the Seattle area. Maybe you're looking at the neighborhood of Shoreline, Washington in particular, which I happen to love. I grew up in this area and I think it's a great place to live. So I'm going to be talking about the cost of living here because one thing is like choosing the neighborhood and seeing what houses you like. But another thing is looking at your budget and understanding if I take this new job with a seemingly high salary, how far is this going to go when I move to Shoreline or Seattle? That being said, I'm a pretty frugal person, so you don't have to be extravagant. There's certainly things that are expensive, like season tickets to professional sports teams can be pricey. Going out to dinner can be pricey, but living your day to day doesn't have to be so much. So I'm going to try to dive into that. I'm going to actually show you my real life bills, and we're going to see what that looks like and also kind of talk about buying a home and what type of property you can get into and how much that's going to cost. So thanks so much for joining me. Again, I'm Emily Cressey. I'm a local real estate agent here in the Shoreline area. I've got my cat Copper sitting with me today. It's cold. And so I just wanted to go through kind of what we do at this channel. I'm a real estate agent. I will help you find your house, find your neighborhood, and kind of match up all of your lifestyle points so that when you get out here, whether you're buying something sight unseen, which I have had people do, whether you're flying out, spending the week, looking at houses together, whatever that looks like, maybe you've moved here, you're living in an Airbnb and you just say, oh, we need to find something to buy. This rental is not going to be our long-term thing. Whatever the case might be, I'm here to help. I love helping people. It's my favorite part of the job. And I also love kind of showing off what we've got going around town. So if you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe. I have a lot of kind of man on the street videos as well as these more technical ones. So that being said, let's dive into the topic today, which is the cost of living in the Shoreline area. Okay, so whenever I'm making one of these videos, this is about Shoreline, Washington in particular. I always like to show you on the map, like, what are we actually talking about here? Because, I could whip off a bunch of names, but if you don't know what I'm talking about or whether that's an area that you're considering, it doesn't do you much good, right? So here's Washington State, here's the Seattle area. So here is the Shoreline neighborhood, and this is just on the cusp of the city of Seattle. So this straight line here all the way across. South of this is the city of Seattle, and north of it is the city of Shoreline. And then over here we have Lake Forest Park. This is where I live. But back in the day, growing up, we didn't have all of these denominations. So it was all kind of the Shoreline area, the Shoreline School District. I consider myself a Shoreline person. So this is the area that it is. And I want to just point out how nice it is here. We stretch from Puget Sound, the water over here, really nice homes, gated communities, multi-million-dollar neighborhoods, Innis Arden, the Highlands, Richmond Beach type stuff over here. So that's going to be expensive. And then we go a lot of residential in this area, homes, hills and dales, woods, things like that. Great middle price point, $1 million homes. And then this is Aurora Avenue, which I always like to complain about because there are some sketchy things. This is where, people are robbing the store and making their getaway on the bus. Down here, it gets a little bit more prostitute-y, but that's because it's the city of Seattle. Shoreline does a better job of keeping it clean. And then this is I-5, our north-south freeway from Canada to Mexico. And this is the main way that you would get into the city of Seattle for work. And also the light rail, the new train, which has turned out to be really good for commuting for my husband. There are two stops. There's one here kind of at the north end, 185th, and then there's one here at the south end, 145th. These have both so far had pretty good parking availability and been a nice way to get into work. There's a lot of high-rise construction. I think this thing that keeps popping up the line as this sponsored apartment complex, but there's a lot of apartments and condos and townhomes going in right here along the light rail, especially around the light rail stops. As far as new construction, if you're interested in something that goes mostly vertical, you're not going to have a yard. The new construction in the Shoreline area is all about space conservation, getting as many people into as small a space as we can. So that's what you'll find if you buy new, but there are a lot of new construction opportunities coming in along here. And then as we go this way over toward Lake Washington, we're going more into the residential neighborhoods again, and this little area is called Lake Forest Park. So that's kind of the overview. There are 2 high schools in here, a couple of different, I think 2 middle schools, and then some more elementary schools that are smaller. So that's the idea. The schools are pretty good. I would say on the great school score, we're looking at around 7s. But I like this area a lot for it's a good combination of being close to Seattle for commuting, reasonably good schools, reasonable family area, and then not as expensive as the east side. The east side has just blown up and gotten very, very pricey over the last 10 years or so. So the east side being here, the Bellevue side of Lake Washington. It's kind of a Twin Cities scenario. Nobody calls it that. They call it the east side. So this used to be kind of the boonies. Microsoft moved in. Bellevue is a smaller downtown area. You could see their skyline there compared to the Seattle skyline has a lot more buildings, plus the iconic Space Needle. But in terms of cleanliness, safety, high rent district, snob appeal, Bellevue is stronger on all of those things. So the east side tends to be a more luxury side, and Shoreline is offering more for your money at this point. So that's the orientation on where we are on the map and kind of what you want to look out for. Nicest neighborhoods are here along the Sound and solid residential areas on both sides of the freeway. It tends to be just a little bit more, less expensive, a little more sketchy in between with proximity to Highway 99, which is not great, and I-5, which is not great. So you'll find new construction, but not the nicest. It's just not the primo area here. Okay, so now let's talk about the cost of utilities here, because once you buy a house, you have to keep it running, and that can get expensive. But the good news is that here in Seattle, utilities are relatively cheap from what I understand. We have a couple dynamics at play here. One is that we generate a lot of electricity in the state from our dams, our hydroelectric dams on the Columbia River. So that's good. We have cheap local electricity. Another thing that's great is that a lot of people have gone solar. So I know people that, like my next door neighbors, have put solar panels on their house, and they have a Tesla and everything like that. I don't know if they have the batteries. I myself have complained that we don't get a lot of sun here, but we do get enough to do solar panels, especially if you have a nice south-facing house with the roof at the right angle and everything like that. If you have a shady house in the woods, it's not going to do anything for you, but we have certainly seen more people adopting solar lately. I don't want to say it's 1 out of 10, but it's every time I go to the grocery store, I see a couple, that kind of a thing. Yeah, so let's look at my actual bills. Now, I live in a 3,000 square foot house that's relatively new. It was built in 2015, so it has like modern insulation and windows and that type of thing. If you live in an older house with inefficient windows that lose a lot of heat, that might be something to think about. If you live in a really old house, you could actually even have the energy company come and do an energy audit on your home and see if there are places where you could insulate some pipes or insulate some walls or the attic or something and save yourself some money with your utility bill. But that being said, let's just sort of dive in and I'll give you a sense of what I pay for different things. Okay, so now let's look at my gas bill and we can get an idea of how much it costs to heat my house. I have gas, hot water. I have one of those tankless hot water heaters where it's on demand. So it never runs out and you're not heating the whole tank all the time. I think that's pretty energy efficient. I have a forced air heat pump that I believe runs on gas. And then I also have a gas stove. So we use a fair amount of gas for a lot of stuff. And this is my gas bill, natural gas. This is the temperature. It's almost flat. So one of the reasons that our bills can be low is also because we don't have a very extreme climate. I do not have air conditioning in my house, nor do I feel that I need it. I grew up in the Seattle area, grew up never having air conditioning. A lot of people who come here like air conditioning, and most of the new construction, they'll put air conditioning in, oftentimes with one of those ductless mini splits. So they just slap it on the wall. It needs to be an exterior wall. And those units are often like in every story of a 3-story townhome. They can do heat as well as air conditioning, and you don't have to have vents in the floor, and you don't have to have a heater or a fan on the wall. So a lot of people like where your furniture would be. It will be on the wall like up above your head height. Anyway, a lot of people like those. I have just an old fashioned heat pump, 10 years old at this point. And so you can see like pretty much this latent low level here gas bill would be my bill from just the stove, cooking my fried eggs in the morning, and my hot water heater for showers, which I guess the water doesn't need as much heating in the summer anyway. And then you can see kind of when we're running the heat, I turn it on in November and through the colder winter months. And then by June, we're turning it off. So that's kind of what our gas bill is. And it looks like this was for the month of October, which would have been low like this, $25. So this is the $25 is kind of throughout the summer. And then this would have been probably how much we ran it in May, and through the spring when it was colder, it runs about $100 a month, 120, 130, and then it goes back down to like 25. So that's our heat bill. Okay, so here's my electricity bill, and bear in mind that on electricity, we're pretty much just running the lights and like the computers, the TV and things like that. I work from home for the most part. My husband often works from home. So we're here during the day. We're not too nervous about like turning off the lights. So to me, this seems pretty high, but it's also not necessarily tied in a lot to the temperature because it's not the heat. So anyway, like peak months were January, probably when it was really dark. March was another peak month. So August, we use less lights, I guess, in the summer because it's lighter outside. But there's not a ton of variation. And I don't know if you could compare this to your electric bill. 800 kilowatt hours to 3,000 kilowatt hours seems to be our range here. And how much does it actually cost? Let's go back and look at was $300. So I don't get a bill every month. I get a bill, let's see, every 2 months, it looks like. And the bills range from 125 to 300 every 2 months. So really the monthly cost would be half of that. So it'd be like 75 to 150 per month for my electric bill. And this is what the breakdown looks like. So there's like a base service charge just to keep me connected, I think. Then there's a rate for the summer energy and winter energy. I don't know why it's billing me. Maybe the first little bit is at a lower rate, and then if I go beyond that, it costs higher. Something like that. Anyway, hopefully, I'm hoping this is helpful, or at least a reference point. I'm trying to be really transparent on my cost of living here. The next one is going to be the water bill, water and sewer. So I pay this through the city of Lake Forest Park, which is not technically in Shoreline, which is the city of Shoreline, but I expect that it would be similar here. And here's what the bill looks like. It's $162. So $110 for King County treatment charge. This sewer service you would not have if you were like on a septic or something like that, and then some various taxes and things. So I have a household of 4 people. We all shower regularly, we run the dishwasher regularly, and we cook at home a lot. But that's about it. So this is not not like we're paying to water the garden with 500 gallons of water or anything like that. And then this here is my invoice history. So you can see the bill is pretty much the same every month, $162.18, and it's billed 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 every 2 months. So we're basically paying $80 a month for water and sewer. Okay, the next bill is my trash bill, which is $80. And so we have a very small trash can. They have different sizes of trash cans, like the big square rectangle ones that hold all your yard waste and your recyclables. Recycling is actually free. We get recycle pickup every 2 weeks, or it's included. But the trash can is what you pay for. And we pay for the size of a trash can. So I would say it fits like 2 really full kitchen trash bags. And we we have more trash than that. So we kind of have to like squish in like the cat litter and, the garbage from the bathrooms and the kids' rooms and things like that. So we do a little bit more squishing than they would like. And there is a weight limit. And they say, oh, if you squish it, then it won't come out when we shake the can upside down and everything. But we have a smaller trash can and we've managed to get away with it. Every so often we'll go on a trip and we won't generate any trash that week. So we could catch up, or my parents will be gone and we'll put trash in their can because they live nearby. So we have our workarounds, but for a family of 4 to survive on this small trash can, I feel good about it. But it is a little bit of a hassle. And if you had a lot of parties or a lot of kids generating a lot of trash, you would probably want a larger trash can than the one we have. It says it's 20 gallons. And so basically the charge for that is $80, but this is not a monthly charge. This one is billed every 3 months. So it's basically $80 every 3 months. I don't know what happened here. I think our credit card expired and it wasn't auto billing correctly. So anyway, before that it was $70, $77, and now it's $80 every 3 months. So that would be about $25 per month for trash. And then the last bill I want to talk about is gas. We pay a pretty high gas tax in this state. So I've seen us in Washington be like $1 per gallon more expensive than it is elsewhere. I would say, I'm looking at Gas Buddy, which is showing the cheapest gas around that you can find. And some of this, like Angel of the Winds, this might be on an Indian reservation where they're not charging as much because they don't have the taxes that we do. So some of these might be fairly discounted, not the real thing, but you can see the Costco gas. That's usually the cheapest gas around. That's $3.30 Walmart gas. So, and I wouldn't be surprised if I went out to the pump right now and I had to pay $3.99 or something. So depending on where you go, obviously everyone can charge their own price for gas, but this is about how much gas is costing us right now, which I acknowledge is generally going to be more expensive than a lot of other states. So as far as transportation goes, we did just get the new light rail, which makes a huge difference in easiness to get to downtown Seattle. It does take some time. My husband rides from Shoreline to downtown Seattle for work, and I think he goes to the Westlake Center, which is in downtown Seattle, and I have the sense it takes him about half an hour once he's actually on the train. And the cost for that is $3 per trip. So that would be $6 per day, once going downtown, once coming back. $6, 3 plus 3. On the other hand, if you want to park downtown, that can be quite expensive. I want to say maybe $300 a month for a downtown parking spot that you permanently rent, whether it's in the garage in your building or finding a spot available on the open market. There are websites and apps where you can find parking and source that. But the idea is that they have made it difficult to park in downtown Seattle because the city does not want people driving into work. Traffic is really bad on I-5. We have a lot of traffic congestion. And so they're forcing people by making it difficult, expensive, and slow to drive into work every day. So if you want to drive into work, you might need to get up early and do it before a rush hour. You could come in, midday and do it after rush hour. But there's going to be traffic congestion and it's going to be expensive to park once you get there. So if you can, think about utilizing public transportation. It might not be everybody's favorite thing, but yes, here we've got millionaires riding on the light rail, and it's not because it's great, it's because it's better than the hassle of driving in. And you can look at your phone, you could do something fun to kind of pass the time to make it potentially a more pleasant experience. You get out, you walk, you get a little fresh air on your way to the office once you get there. So far that's been a pretty good solution for us. The main thing to watch out for in this, I think, is making sure that when you drive to the park and ride to get to the light rail stop, that you actually can find a parking spot. This was a big deal before when we only had the northernmost stop was at Northgate. Okay, so right here is the Northgate Transit Center, and I want to zoom out so you can kind of get a feel for that. So this used to be as far north as the light rail went. And so all of the buses and everybody that was driving in and wanted to take the light rail from this whole region up north was all coming here at 8 o'clock in the morning. So if you wanted to get there, like my husband was having to wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning to get onto the light rail and drive south, or right at south. So that was kind of a hassle because there was not enough parking here at the light rail stop. So now the light rail goes up here to Linwood, and this is the last stop. So everybody in Everett, Mill Creek, and places north, this is where they're going to be coming to get on the light rail. They have a pretty good sized transit center here, but it wouldn't surprise me if this parking lot also was getting filled up in the morning. The nice thing about now we have, stop in Linwood, stop in Mount Lake Terrace, 2 stops in Shoreline. So we're really only drawing from a smaller area around here. So there shouldn't be like a whole region of people. It should just be a smaller region of people that are heading to this park and ride. But over time, as word gets out, as more people move in, we get higher density housing. It wouldn't surprise me if these parking garages started filling up. But the good news for my husband now, he can wake up closer to 6 o'clock with the rest of us and, leave the house at 7 and get there and still have parking spots. He feels like if he slept in another 2 hours and came at 9, the parking might be full. So just lifestyle wise, timing with your job, I've come here at like 4 in the afternoon and had parking spots available that were great. But I could also see, maybe some people would have worked their day and come back and emptied out. So anyway, just keeping an eye on that parking availability and considering what the city would like for you to do is to walk or ride your bicycle to the transit center as well, which could be an option. I find it to be fairly unpleasant to bike in 50-degree rainy weather up and down hills. That's their vision for it, and parking is limited. So just bear that in mind with your schedule and your wake up time and everything. And now my favorite part, the real estate. Let's take a look at the cost of living and what you could actually buy for your money, what you get for your money when you buy a home in the Shoreline area. So again, I'm showing you on the map where the homes are. These are homes that are for sale right now. And so every green dot is a home. You can see that there's a lot of dots kind of closer to the middle of the area. And that's because some of these are going to be townhomes and new construction, so there are more units available. And then over here, Richmond Beach, very nice. So let's kind of look at how many there are, what they cost, what sort of the price ranges are. So first of all, these are all rental properties right here. Not every rental property is on the MLS, but this is certainly something that if you're looking for a nice long-term home, you may be able to find some options here. So this looks like it's a 1-bedroom condo. It's a store. It's kind of a sketchy looking house, 1,300 square feet. It's a townhouse, $3,000 a month. It's a 3-bedroom, 1-bath, 1,000 square foot house for $3,000 a month. So this is the rental market here. Just to give you a sampling, this is probably a kind of a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 3-bath, 2,500 square foot home. And now we're switching into what's for sale. So this is a condominium starting at $285. And this is pretty typical. You might be able to find a condo somewhere in the Seattle area for sale that's closer to $200,000. But for the Shoreline area, for Linwood, you're going to be closer to like $300,000. You're going to be at a 2-bedroom unit for the most part. We don't have a lot of studios in the suburbs. There are plenty of studios and 1-bedrooms available. There are going to be more of them in the city of Seattle itself. And then when you're buying a condo, you also have to bear in mind that they have a homeowners association. So they have the homeowners association dues. And I typically see these between $400 to $600 a month. $700 a month is pretty high, which is indicative of oftentimes what we see in these older buildings is deferred maintenance. You can tell this is an older style of building, and they have probably not saved a ton of money over the years, right? So a lot of times when these expenses come due, like we need a new roof, we need to redo the siding, then that can cost money. And the question is, have they saved enough to be able to address those needs? So if not, then they could do what's called a special assessment, which is where they bill everybody in the building. They bill everybody in the building for the shortfall. They might bill it all at once. They might bill it over time. This looks like kind of a stucco building. The deck looks okay, but not great. You know, they could do it a couple different ways. So when we're looking at condos, we need to be really careful about looking at the finances of the homeowners association, not just how much we like the unit itself. This one looks like it has some nice facilities, which can be a plus if you think that you'll use them, but remember that you're paying to maintain them through the homeowners association. So if you're not going to use them, sometimes simpler is better. They've got a sauna, which is cool, a pool, expensive. Very few people here use a pool. It's just not very hot in the summer. I mean, it's like 80 degrees in the summer, and the pools are usually freezing cold. Maybe 80 degrees, you know, they're heated up to 80 or 82, but it's just not like a hot, bake in the sun, cool off in the pool climate. It's kind of very few days that those can be used. And so here's a little view of our region. I don't know where all the houses are. Like, where are they looking that they're not seeing the houses? There they are. So, but we do have a lot of evergreens, but they all have houses in between. This looks like virgin forest over here, and that's just not what it is. So anyway, that's kind of the bottom price point. This is a 1-bedroom home condo, and we'll see, you know, a couple more. Here's another 1-bedroom for $280. Here's another 1-bedroom for, okay, so here we're starting to get into 2 bedrooms, and you're closer to $250. Okay, so let's look back at this. So we're having condos. You can see here it says condominium, condo, rent, condo, condo, and then it starts to switch into residential. So a lot of people say, I'm approved for $500,000. I want to buy a house. And that $500,000 price point is really kind of the threshold. I had a client who was looking at a house. She wanted to spend $400,000. She ended up spending $425,000. We could not find a good home for her in the Seattle area. She had to go down to Tacoma, which she found a beautiful, like 100-year-old, real cute home, you know, can have some little projects done over time. But that's where she is right now because she wanted a house. She had a big dog. She wanted a house. She works from home. She wanted her space. She wanted to garden. So she has a great house, but she could not find a $400,000 house that wasn't just trashed as a big, you know, renovation project in the Seattle area. So something that you can move into, you need to be at a higher price point. And $500,000, let's see what we get for $500,000 right here, our first house on the list. Okay, so we see it has a lot of pine needles. Possibly this is a garage, brimming with potential. Okay, hole in the wall, holes. I mean, it looks like it could be just a cosmetic fixer. It looks sort of like an estate sale or something like that. They've got a good kitchen, so not bad. For $500,000, you could live in here. You could fix it up over time. It would be okay, but probably not exactly what you want. Let's look what else they have. Okay, so this one's $540. It's by Parkwood Elementary School, so it's kind of by Highway 99 and I-5. You know, some interesting decor choices. It's a 2-bedroom. They have probably real hardwood floors, painted, and I mean, it kind of has, like, this isn't the nicest sink and everything. Kind of looks like a rental house, but you could live in here and that could be really cute, but small. 840 square feet, 2 bedrooms. Let's see what else. Kind of a log cabin, 840 square feet, 2 bedrooms. Then we get into the townhomes. So we're going to see a lot of these vertical style townhomes where it's like you come in, there's the garage, you go up a flight of stairs, you have the kitchen and living room area, and then you have a couple of bedrooms with a shared bathroom or possibly two bathrooms upstairs. So these are a lot of the types of homes that are being put in, and you could find something new or relatively new, and they only have an outside picture. That's kind of a question mark. And this is 1,400 square feet. So as long as you like stairs and you don't mind the shared walls, you can get more space, higher quality finishes, less yard to maintain in this type of home here. And do they have an HOA? It's $100 per month, which is probably not enough to maintain the exterior long term. So either that's something that the homeowners association doesn't do and that you'd be responsible for doing yourself, or it could be the type of thing that they just aren't saving enough for, and they're going to have to jack those bills up to $400 a month before too long. Usually the builder will start with having them on a low level, like, oh, it's no HOA, don't worry about it. Very cheap, very cheap. And then you get in there and you're not saving enough, and you have a reserve study that tells you need to be saving $500 a month. So then you jack it up to $300 a month, and you're still not saving enough, but you're trying to increase it over time, right? And here's new construction. I think I did a video tour of this as well, which I thought was very nice. The neighborhood was on a busy street, but it was on a bus line. There you could see the air conditioner. This right here is called a mini split. That's the air conditioner, but really nice finishes, 1 or 2 car parking, 2 bedrooms, a couple of bathrooms. So this is a new construction site. And one of the nice things about new construction right now is that they'll often have an on-site lender that gives you a lower interest rate. So you could potentially have your payment could look like a $500,000 home, even though you're buying a $600,000 home with the interest rate incentives. So that's kind of a plus for that type of thing. More townhomes, more townhomes, more townhomes. Let's look for when we get into more of the single family detached price range. So this one actually looks really cute right here. This is a 3-bedroom. It's in the Ridgecrest area. It's near the Crest Theater. It's an older home that's been updated. You see the hardwood floors. You see the fireplace. So the biggest concern with these types of houses just tends to be the layout. The rooms tend to be a little bit smaller. The kitchen is smaller. It's just built in the 1960s or whatever. That time frame was just smaller houses. You know, people played outside. They didn't sit around inside as much. They had formal entertaining space, so that whatever, you know, like the kitchen was tucked away so you wouldn't see the mess. So a lot of our newer construction homes are more toward the great room concept and a different layout. And so the question is, are these layouts still practical for the way we want to live? And honestly, for this price point, this looks like a really cute home, and they have some nice windows. You know, it's an updated, maybe not fully modern, but it's not the original kitchen. So very livable, very cute. They have somewhere they've tucked the little dishwasher in. They've done some upgrades. That looks like maybe it's a upstairs in the attic in the roof line bedroom here. That's the other thing to watch out for. Sometimes the finished square footage has a roof like this, and like someone like me who's tall, we could walk down the center of the roof line, but we can't walk very far to the side. So keep an eye on that. You can actually look at, I don't know if the public facing view has, but the realtor view will say, is everything on the main level, or is there an upper level, a lower level? Like, where are these bedrooms and bathrooms located? Are they going to be tucked away, or are they going to be in a good spot? And so a lot of these kind of older 1,400, 1,500 square foot homes, usually they have a nice yard. That's one of the nice things about the older homes, is that you're going to get a full yard. So this has 7,000 square foot yard. I want to try to get into kind of the nicer, let's go here. Let's bump up to 800. So 800,000 is pretty much our median price point in the Seattle area. So for the median price point, you're still getting kind of one of these older 3-bedroom, 1-bath homes. The premium is usually going up to 1 bathroom to 3 bathrooms. It's much better to have 3 bedrooms than 2 bedrooms, and it's much better to have 2 bathrooms than 1 bathroom. There we go, because apparently walking and talking at the same time are beyond me here. Okay, so here's a 3-bedroom, 1.75, and this looks a lot like the one that we saw that was 600,000. So to me, I'm guessing this is just in a better area, a different street kind of a thing, more new construction. We are going to see more people subdividing lots. So when you have a big lot that could fit 2 homes, or, you know, a detached accessory dwelling unit that could be turned into a condo, then that's going to be something that developers are going after. So it could be an investment long term to have something with a big lot, but it also could make it more expensive because you're competing with developers and not just other home buyers. Okay, so here's a 4-bedroom home. It's brick, which is a nice upgrade. It's still older, but you're going to get more space. It looks like it probably has a downstairs living space as well. A nice deck up here, enjoying the view. Smaller bedrooms, a lot of updates, nicely staged. And then here's kind of the downstairs basement space where you have tertiary bedrooms and office spaces, usually a rec room. A lot of people have finished out the garage. This looks like it only ever had a one-car garage, and then this might be the neighbor's parking, or it might be their parking for an additional car or an RV or something. And they've done a lot of landscaping. That's been on the market for 4 days. Looks nice. Here's another one, a split entry, 900,000. If we go up to $1 million, we're starting, this is still a split entry home, but it's been, I think the upgrades look a little bit nicer. This might have been professionally remodeled all at once, kind of a fix and flip. So we have a lot of like 1960s type of stuff in this area. This is a cool house, Richmond Beach, 1.2 million. It looks like they might have a 3-car garage. This looks like a little bit more of a 1980s style house to me. It has a big deck, little eat-in kitchen space, as well as a formal dining room over here, kind of the light woods. That kind of gives you an idea of that. Once we get over about $1 million, $1.5 million, we're kind of going into the luxury price points, and we don't really have a lot to look at after that, but I always like to show them just because, oh my gosh, this is like a builder property. That's not nice. And that's a builder property too. Okay, so nothing luxury on the market right now. This is the nicest one at 1.8 million. Let's see if we like it. I don't know. I feel like this is going to have a hard time selling at 1.8 million, but yeah, it's been on the market a while. Let's see where it's located. It's right by 145th. All right. Well, good luck with that one. Let's get back to the show. So as we wrap up on our real estate section, I just want to talk briefly about property taxes. I know in some areas like Wisconsin, Texas, they have very high property taxes that really have a big impact on the cost of living. Here, our property taxes are a little more than 1% of the value of the property. So this is a sample property here. You can see their assessed value was like 700,000 and their taxes were about 8,000 per year. Here, their assessed value went up to 869,000, and their taxes were about 9,000. Then they went down, which was nice. They assessed it downward back to 747, and so their taxes went down to about 8.8 thousand per year. Our taxes are paid twice a year in April and October, so you can just write a check and pay those taxes. So you'll pay like 4,000 and then 4,000 again. In this case, with an $8,000 tax bill, or in the case of most mortgages, the mortgage company will take that up for you each month. So, here you take your bill, 8,000 divided by 12. So maybe you're paying, I don't know what that amounts to, around $800, $900 a month added on to your housing cost to go to your property tax. And Shoreline is not a huge part of that. They say over here that they actually get 10% of your total property tax bill. So 6% of that is the state portion, and 4% of that is the local rate. And of the 4%, Shoreline receives 1%, and the remaining 3% go to other local governments. So this is just a little City of Shoreline breakdown on where your property taxes go. Right now, they're using some of that to put in more sidewalks throughout the area. Also, schools have been a big recipient of local property tax funds. Other things that they sometimes do are putting in, like working on parks, pools, rec centers, those types of things. So property taxes there, rough rule of thumb, take the value of your home, divide it by 1%, and that's your annual property tax bill. And it's a little bit higher than that, but that'll give you the right ballpark. And so make sure that you account for that if you're looking at mortgage calculators and things. The other thing to think about is property insurance. But again, I don't think our hazard insurance is too high here. You can adjust it for earthquakes. There are earthquake add-ons that are not here by default. This is something of an earthquake zone like California would be. We are on a fault. I have had maybe 3 or 4 different earthquakes in my lifetime. I'm 45 years old. So there have been like maybe once every 10 years, there's a quake that's significant enough to feel it, and everybody talks about it for a day. But very rarely is there significant property damage from that. If you're in a house that's been here for 50 years, you can see that it survived all of those other earthquakes and been okay or not. I mean, you could look at the foundation and figure that out. But for the most part, that's not something that I live in fear of. And flooding, I mean, we saw in North Carolina, you can always have a flood in a place you don't expect it. There are some places in Snohomish County that are prone to flooding near some of the rivers up there. But Shoreline, for the most part, is so hilly and ups and downs. You're not going to have like flatlands, lowlands where water can rise out of a river and come get you without knowing about it. So that's not really something that I look at or worry about too much here either. So I think no tornadoes, hurricanes, tsunamis. It hasn't happened yet. So I think we're in a pretty safe area as far as property insurance goes as well. So I hope this has been really helpful. I'm giving you like my actual private information about my bills and kind of giving you a sense of what it costs to run a household here, gas and taxes and your other major expenses. So, you know, we could talk about how the cost of Chipotle burritos has gone up from $7 to $10, and I'm not thrilled about it, but I think that's the type of inflation that we're seeing everywhere with restaurants and grocery stores and things like that. But it's really the taxes that are going to get you. So the key to success in Washington is to buy a house that then appreciates, to have a high income job that you don't pay any tax on the income, and to not spend very much money on pens at the store because you have to pay tax on that, right? So high income, low expenditures is the way to maximize your savings here in the Seattle area. I'm probably sure that's the case everywhere. But anyway, if you want to talk more about this or anything else that has to do with Shoreline, Washington, check out my other videos kind of going through some of the neighborhood gems and what to look for in the Shoreline area. Also, you can compare other areas that you might be thinking about living. If Shoreline's not right for you, you want something less expensive, look north to Linwood. I would really recommend looking north. If you want better schools, closer proximity to the east side, I would look east. Lake Forest Park, Kenmore, and Bothell are other alternative areas. And if you want a more urban experience, closer to work, and you're not as worried about schools and prostitution and drug use, then I would go south into the city of Seattle. Maybe look at some of the nicer areas there. I really like Ballard. Wedgwood is a nice residential area. Those aren't so far south that they're going to be as expensive as kind of the close-in neighborhoods like Queen Anne and Capitol Hill. So I hope that's helpful. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you on the next video. And don't forget to come see me on my website, HomeProAssociates.com. Would love to have you reach out. Take care.